Hello, Operation Sports. This is Mike Lowe back with episode 5 of our NBA 2K expansion MyGM. And this episode is going to be focused around a question I received on YouTube. This question came from the icon, Rashad Bolden. He asked, do you have a video about tips on scouting players and the draft? And I want to use that question as the premise for episode 5 here. So we are at the start of season 2. I have simulated through maybe 15 days of the season so far. The Grackles are right around 500. Dennis Smith Jr. looks really good. I mean, he's probably averaging around like 13 points a game, 9 assists, 8 assists, somewhere around there. And it's been pretty good so far. But here we are. We are at the part when in a season your scout comes to you and says, hey, we are ready to start our scouting for this season. Now, really the only stage you'll have to make a decision on before any of this is when you first start up a season or a brand new MyGM in this case. You'll want to load in your draft class. And what I have done is I've loaded in an actual real life 2018 draft class because again, this is season 2 now. So I think this is a really good time to focus on this very question from Rashad because there's probably a lot of videos out there looking at the 2017 draft class, which we have already gone through. As I mentioned, Dennis Smith Jr. Is our rookie Grackle this year. So we're going to be looking at the 2018 draft class, real life draft class. And this is a draft class that was created by Embrace the Pace, who's part of the 2K community, obviously. And he has a lot of awesome draft files, among other things, available on 2K Share. And so I've gone in, I've already loaded that. I can't back out and show you that exactly, but the game will prompt you to do that. So here we are, Jack Gilbert, who is the new scout that we hired based off of my owner's request to get a scout with at least an A- in scouting. So Jack Gilbert comes with a nice repertoire, a nice resume, and we're excited to work with him this first year. So he says it's time to start looking at prospects available for next year's draft. Who should we target? And the game's going to give you a handful of options, right? So we can pick the prospects ourselves, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. But if you're kind of pressed for time, or if you know absolutely that, I need to get a small forward this year, you could just have him, Jack Gilbert, your scout, just focus on a particular position. Now, this could be temporary, say for the next 2 weeks or so, which is what I think the scouting periods go. And some of that could be based on just your scout's ability, how fast they return the results. Or you could just say scout always handles. Now, the pros and cons of these, right? The pro of you letting the scout handle it is that it's going to increase his rating. You can see on the top of the screen there, he's a 51. So it's pretty average. I know it seems low, but that's just kind of where a guy will start. So if I continue to let him do the scouting, his morale is going to increase, his trust in me, his respect, all that stuff's going to increase much quicker than it would be any other way. However, I don't want to just give him that full-on ability just yet because I want to pick the prospects myself. Now, I will still get rewarded with some positive morale. That 51 should bump up here, but let's go in and pick the prospects because I want to make sure I'm thorough here for Rashad and others so that we can look and see what we're going to be checking out. So when I select pick prospects, it takes me to this screen, and this is all of the positions, obviously. And I can sort through by clicking R2. I can go to just point guards, I can go to just shooting guards, and so on. And as I scroll through this here, you can see it's the different positions. But here I'm sorted by all positions because what I like to do, first off, there's a lot of just different kind of attributes you can see here, whether it's the percentage of the scouting that the players had. And you can see some players are already scouted, and I think this kind of represents just a general beginning of the college basketball season, general knowledge that your scouting team would already have on a certain player, right? So Michael Porter Jr., he is someone that we already have 25% of the way scouted. And as I go through in here, you can see that there's already a scouting report that's been developed for him. It's not going to be super accurate, 25%. But if I had to make a selection based off of this, it could help, right? He's only played the 3 games for this college season that is simulating in the background. And we can see we get some general ratings and so on. But we're not going to have things like potential just yet. You need to go through and continue to scout these players in order to unlock that potential rating. Even when you do unlock it, it may not be completely accurate, even at 100%. 100% just means he's been fully scouted by your scout, not necessarily revealing all of the true ratings. And you can confirm that that's how the game works, because if you hire a new scout after you've scouted someone 100%, you will see those ratings change. So I can 100% tell you that that is how the game is operating, is that it's 100%. When you see it 100%, that's according to your scout. He feels he's done looking at that player, and he's not going to give you any more information on them. He could be completely right. He could be completely wrong. That's going to be up to you to decide. When you are 100%, when you've scouted a player 100%, you'll start to also see the badges being unlocked. And that's the only way you're ever going to see badges unlocked for a player, is if you have scouted him 100%. So, of course, you can sort by age, his listed height, which again may not be 100% accurate, right? Listed height, listed weight, same thing. They're not completely accurate, and these can change and fluctuate. Listed wingspan, same thing. Here's where I like to spend a lot of time in the beginning looking, right? We have a lot of these as I scroll through. We have like 9 different sections here, beyond just the what college they're from and that sort of thing. But we have kind of their overall ranking by a kind of a fictitious Draft Express, which is sort of like a Scouts Inc. or something like that. We have the 2K ranking, which is again sort of like a secondary evaluation team. And then we have NBA.com. Now, I don't know for certain, but what I've really honed in on Draft Express, and it's helped me a lot. This is the one I look at the most. So if I were to sort these players, which is exactly what I do, I like to sort them by the Draft Express ranking. But I'll also look at these too. Now we can see we have a consensus this early on in the season. We have a consensus #1 best player available in this draft, and it's Troy Brown Jr. Now he's scouted 23%, right? He's out of Oregon. He's a 2 guard, 6'7". He's got real nice size. And right now he's only rated an overall of C+. Now again, that will turn into a number as you progress through and unlock more of that percentage scouted. You'll start to see that. But you can see this guy is just ones all the way through. This is like a LeBron James here, right? Or a Shaquille O'Neal, that sort of thing, where it's just a consensus #1. So that's interesting to see. Interestingly enough, NBA.com has his draft projection at 10, which again, that kind of shows you the order of which I kind of follow these recommendations. So I look at Express as #1, 2K #2, and then NBA.com is kind of a distant third. And this is kind of the proof here. I mean, where is this? That draft projection is kind of out of nowhere. So you can see we don't have a ton of strengths nor a ton of weaknesses just yet. Just 3 games played. So again, we'll see. Will Troy Brown Jr. continue to be at the top of this list? We'll see. Probably not. I mean, there could be some fluctuation here, but with him being a consensus #1, like we're seeing, that might not change as much as another draft class. So anyway, that's where I like to look. When I start scouting, you can see at the top there, I get 8 players with this time that I can go back and tell my scout, here's what I want you to look at. Now, this early on in the season, we're 500. I have no idea where we're going to draft. We could have the #1 pick based on the lottery. We could have the 25th pick. I have no idea. But certainly, as we saw with last year's draft, where we ended up getting Dennis Smith Jr., who was drafted #5 overall, we ended up getting him in a trade when our 10th overall pick came up. So I definitely want to be scouting these top players. So I will use one on Troy Brown Jr. And again, I'm just kind of looking through here, and I'm really not too concerned just yet with like their position rankings, because I'm always looking for best available player. Unless I have a Michael Jordan at shooting guard or something, I might not be worried about scouting shooting guards. But otherwise, I want best available player almost always. So position ranks, it's almost kind of just a redundant thing when I'm looking at the actual draft ranks, because these are the overall rankings. These are the rankings based on just the positions, right? Projected, I'm not super concerned with the draft projections just yet, because it's so early. We're still in November here of the 2017-18 seasons here. So I'm not super concerned with those. I will look at those though before I submit my final list, and I'll show you how I do that here momentarily. So I'm just going to go in order. I'm not looking at names. I'm not really looking at ratings just yet, because I don't really care. Nothing's going to be super accurate just yet. I want to learn more about the best players at this point. So what I'm looking for here is I have 8 total, scouting recommendations to make. So I'm pretty much looking at these top 8 guys. I'm also looking at the ratings over in 2K and NBA just to make sure I'm not missing anybody like somebody like Tony Bradley, who is ranked sixth by NBA. I'll take a quick look, but for the most part, I'll probably go with these top eight. When I look at the positions, I can't really think of a position we may not need, even if they're not going to, not necessarily was looking for a starter in the draft, especially their rookie year. So even at shooting guard, we have Oladipo right now, who's going to be back next year with us, is at least the plan. We are, it looks like, going to be probably losing Norman Powell. He wants $10 to $12 million a year, and I don't want to pay that to a backup. I like him, and I would, but our owner wants us to free up $25 million in cap space for next year for free agency. So I don't think I'm going to be getting Norman Powell. So a shooting guard is actually a pretty high priority for us because I want to have that depth off the bench, especially at the two guard. So I will be scouting them. Small forward, same thing I mentioned in episode 4, that we have sort of a stopgap in Otto Porter. So I like Otto Porter, but he's not really a long-term solution for us right now. So I will be looking at small forwards as well. Now, point guard is a position I'm tempted to maybe skip over for now because I love Dennis Smith Jr. I don't really see the need to worry too much about point guard, but because he's the only point guard, I guess there's 2 of them popping up in this top 8. Again, I'm going to default to having the best available player because we may very well, as a second-year expansion team, be picking in the top 8 or the top 10, just like we did last year. Kind of a fun trivia question, though. My Grackles expansion team, we're starting our 2nd season now. Next year's draft, so it'll be at the completion of our 2nd season, at the start of our 3rd season. We still have not officially made a draft pick because I started the expansion draft after the real life draft to kind of keep the rosters intact. So we, of course, did not make a pick that year. And then last year, we got Dennis Smith Jr., but we got him through a trade. And part of that trade was our 2nd round pick. So we have a rookie in Dennis Smith Jr., but technically, a little trivia tidbit is we have never made a draft selection as of yet. So this very well could be our very first pick. So I'm going to continue picking certainly the shooting guards here through the top 8, and I'll throw in that 2nd point guard. I will definitely be curious to see these centers because last year's draft class did not have any really top centers coming out. I mean, there were only a few really in that first round that were even worth looking at. So anyway, that's how I'm going to be starting this one. I will make some tougher decisions as we go through here, and I'll start to ignore some of these players. I might look at them and say, you know what, here's the makeup of the small forward, but you know what, I don't really like that type of small forward, or I don't like that type of point guard, and I'll just stop scouting them because I know it's not really a player that's going to fit what I'm trying to do or what my coach is wanting to do with his particular style that he is going to or has put in place for the team. So for this one, I'll be just picking the top 8 according to Draft Express. I will, again, just give a cursory look here at these 2 rankings just to see if there's anyone we're missing or maybe overextending on. You can see 2K has Colin Sexton rated as the 72nd best player in the draft, so maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but we'll see. We'll see how those will change and how that's going to go about. And then Rashad, the other question that he asked on YouTube, again, just kind of, how do you go through the draft process? I mean, that's hard to answer because really the draft moves pretty quickly. My advice is you want to have a game plan. You want to have a game plan in place for the draft. And that's what I did going into last year's draft. We had the 10th pick. I, ahead of time, talked to all of the teams ahead of us and tried to offer them a trade. Most of the teams said, we're not interested whatsoever in moving our first round pick for you to move up. There were 2 teams that were willing to do it. It was the Knicks at number 8 and the Wizards at number 9. And so I knew going in I was going to try to talk to those teams. The challenge for me was it happened so fast I couldn't even get the trade screen to pop up before the teams made their pick. But luckily for us, the Miami Heat had offered us a trade to trade back down for some weird reason. And they offered us Dennis Smith Jr., who I was tickled to death to select, or to take the trade. So I guess to answer the question, what's the approach for the draft? How do you go about handling the draft? I would say having a game plan, not getting panicked. Stay with that game plan. You have all season to kind of think about that particular game plan, especially when you're it's a sport where you have just 5 starters. You have a team of basically just really 10 to 12 guys who are going to see the floor on a nightly basis. I think having a game plan can be simplified greatly by keeping those things in mind and be thinking about free agency. So it's really, there's a lot of ways to answer that, but in a nutshell, game plan. I think that's what I would break it down to. So hopefully that helps y'all. Again, I'll be excited to see what we get back here in regards to the scouting. And what I'm thinking of doing here is let's actually, so yes, I'm going to say yes, let's select these 8. And you'll see here now, he'll be happy. So in a couple weeks, and I'll simulate ahead just to take a look. And oh, I think I actually get the little prestige boost from him after he comes back. And you can see Norman Powell wants to talk again about his role. We're gonna kind of wait on that for now. But let's sim ahead here. You can see again we're right around 500. I think we are at 500, 4-4. Yep. And let's just sim ahead, kind of week by week, and let's see what our scout comes back with. So first off, Norman Powell has been growing increasingly frustrated with his role within the team. Do you plan on making him a starter? Let him stew. I'm not going to comment on that because he is going to stew, but you can never say never with injuries, right? So I don't really care about the reporter trust. The thing about reporter trust, right, is that you will, I guess the consequences you can suffer from that is that you'll see this little thing about there's a new website circulating around called like Fire Mike Lowe or whatever, and so it'll start to kind of drum up some kind of angst from the community, and based off of your owner, if he's really big on like team perception and team identity, I think it's called, or team image, that could start to really tank your job security. So it is something you want to be careful with. You don't always just want to piss off the the press. I mean, what I found is just be honest. If there's an honest answer you can pick, even if you're gonna piss off somebody, almost all those decisions, right? So I would just say be honest, because the worst thing you want to do is kind of make a promise or say one thing and you end up doing another based on your strategy, and it kind of messes everything up. So here we have a text message from our assistant GM. It looks like Nerlens here is upset at us. Yeah, on the right-hand side, it says he has been complaining about the role he's been getting recently, which I don't understand because he's a starter. So here's what I would say. Before you just go in and talk to him, if you press R3, it'll pull up his player card here, and you can scroll through, and you'll be able to see, where the heck am I going? Oh, here it is. So within the badges, you'll be able to see those personality badges. And it just says laid back, pretty chill at times, although not this time. So sometimes you'll see something like they respond best to criticism, or they tough love, or they want to be coddled, and that can be a good clue into how to respond. But I don't understand why he's upset, because he is indeed starting. Last I checked, and I let the coach handle all this. Oh, he's not. Look at this. Roy Hibbert is suddenly starting according to our coach. That's interesting. But just to kind of simulate this mode as best I can, and so I can really simulate a little bit quicker, I let the coach handle all of this, which I think is a lot of fun, because it creates little things like this. Like, wait a second, I got Noel to be a starter, and our coach isn't using him as a starter. So here's something cool. Let me see if I can actually go talk to our coach. I wonder if I can just bring that up. All I can do is pep talk him, which I don't want to do. So, by the way, I was talking about team style, right? This is a way you can actually look and see what your coach likes to do, right? If you went in that mode I just did, you can start to see some of the makeup. Unfortunately, you can't really see this till after you hire the guy, but I think that's kind of cool too, because you don't really know somebody, right, until you spend a lot of time around them. So it sort of accidentally simulates that. So real quick, let me go in and talk to Noel here, or Noel, however you say it. And see, I would love to promise to change his role, but I just worry it's not really my decision, right? And if it doesn't happen, he's just going to get pissed. So I'm going to deny him tough love because it's up to the coach. He's going to be probably pretty mad at me. Yeah, so he's pretty ticked. That happens. We can revisit that later. So let's simulate up to when our scout comes back next, and then I'll wrap this episode up. That's an interesting trade, but for now, I want to wait on trades. We do need to move Powell eventually, but I want to see what this team's going to be first. So here's the trainer, kind of the typical, wants to increase the practice intensity. And some of that's going to come down to those general manager badges you've unlocked, right? If your players can handle it more, you'll find a nice balance here between keeping your scout happy, keeping the players happy. So for now, I'm going to do nothing. Still a little too early. Oh, here it is, right? The online petition, Fire Mike Lowe, has more than 2,000 signatures. Anything to say to your fans that have signed it? So there you go. Just trying to be honest with him. Okay, be patient. We're an expansion team. Of course, the press continues to not like me. And boy, we are just losing. What is that? 6 in a row. 6 losses in a row. We're 4-9. Gonna have to talk to Noel again here. I think if we simulate, by the way, here are those 3 Memphis games in a row. That was kind of bizarre. I talked about in the last episode. So let's simulate through, should be right around here. Another loss. There's no way in heck I'm trading Smith Jr. Jabari Parker's a nice player, but I'm not looking to make moves just yet. It's so early. 15 games into the season only. There, here we go. So Jack Gilbert is now back, and this is where we'll wrap up this episode. But let's see what he came back with. So definitely view the report. Here are the 8 players. So now, instead of like 23, 24%, we have a little bit more. So I'm going to, same thing. I'm going to re-rank. And now look at Colin Sexton is rated as the #1 player according to Draft Express. Troy Brown Jr. has fallen down to actually number 8. So you can see, boy, maybe Draft Express was a little aggressive here in the beginning with some of their rankings, because as I look at these 3, there's only 3 according to NBA.com who are still in the top 8. There are only 2 for 2K, and there's only 2 as well for Draft Express. So let's see how Troy Brown Jr. changed. Of course, we don't have any badges. We still just have a letter grade for the overall. His height and weight is the same. So here we get a little clue into his potential rating, right? So this is a good indicator that, hey, I want to keep scouting this guy because he's probably got a pretty good potential. A few more games, you can see his points per game are increasing. And again, big clue here. He's not a huge, he's not even averaging 15 points a game, and that's matching up here. So he's not going to be a huge point scorer, anything like that. Now they have his potential roughly rated at a B. So Troy Brown Jr. is just, I'm not sure about him. I'm not sure if this is a guy I'd be interested in, because if you're not going to be a scorer, I want you to at least be a good perimeter defender. And he's really neither so far. I like his height, but I don't know. So he's a guy I'm not sure. I don't know if I would continue to scout him. At least not yet. If we look at Colin Sexton now, who is, according to them, the #1 player according to Draft Express, they have him as a B- overall. It's just a straight point guard at 6'2", and he can score. He can pass. He can play some defense. He's very athletic. He's a good player. Potential coming out really high. I mean, Colin Sexton definitely looks like a good player, and this is why it's important to really scout positions that you may not be interested in picking, because what if this guy fell to us? There's no way we'd want to pass and take someone else like a Troy Brown at this point from what we can see so far. So you can see some of the strengths. Looks to have one of the highest upsides in the draft. Okay. So if he has one of the highest potentials, this might not be a super strong draft class, right? If it's only a B+, which isn't bad by any means, but we might not see too many guys with A or A- scouting. So again, I could go through all these guys and show you, but that's what I do. eventually I'll go back. He'll ask me the exact same thing. Oh yeah, it looks like actually you can even load up a draft class at this stage. So if you, for some reason, wanted to kind of switch back, or if you accidentally, like I almost did, loaded the same draft class twice, you could go back and undo that mistake, luckily. So that's kind of cool. Um, so let's see. When I hit the O button, it's going to back me out. Nice job on the report. And eventually his morale will increase. And so now, same thing. I can go in and pick the prospects, and we're right back to where this episode started. So I'll stop there. But that's it, right? It's really just kind of your style. I hope I answered the question thoroughly enough for you, and without also kind of, I don't want to just give everything away. And first off, I don't know how it's programmed exactly, but I think sometimes when you spend too much time kind of reading through forums and looking for things, it starts to ruin the story a little bit. And so I like that it's a little bit vague. I'm really excited that the game, even at 100%, isn't 100% accurate, if you know what I'm saying on that. So like, um, it, when you have a player scouted 100%, as I mentioned, it's not necessarily 100% truth. And so I think that's a really, really good thing. I'm glad 2K did it that way. And for instance, like I don't know if Madden, I'm pretty sure like once you scout someone in Madden, that is the actual ratings, which is kind of silly, right? I kind of like that veil of mystery. And maybe Madden's different this year. I hadn't played around with that part too much in this year's game, but I'm pretty sure in 16 that was the case. So anyway, that's going to do it for episode 5. Really just a focus on scouting and a little bit on drafting and just strategy and just a sneak peek really at the Grackle's second season. That's off to a pretty rough start. We have some chemistry issues starting to appear now, and we are losing more games than we are winning for sure. So we'll be back next time. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm Mike Lowe at Operation Sports. You can follow me on Twitter at MikeLowe_OS. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get kind of some like a sneak preview almost of these videos because they'll pop up on my YouTube channel a little bit before they'll be posted on Operation Sports. So if you're interested in seeing these right when they're posted, go ahead and subscribe to that. And as always, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, whether it's on the stream or elsewhere. So thanks everyone for watching, and we will talk next time.